Hey, it is August the 7th, 2018, and we might, talk here for a little while. Right? There's some things that, I want to go over and I want to reiterate with all my folks out here, some stuff that might be new to some folks. All right, and as this plane passes over, I just want to kind of dive in, at a certain angle and begin by bringing up, of course, what we've been talking about for a while. That's that Parkland shooting over there in Florida. Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, Nikolas Cruz. He is a monster, and we're trying to figure him out. All right. I want to talk about that real quick because there's some developments, as you all know, probably if you're keeping track of this here case with the hearings and this and that, what shall be released to the public, and this and that. From what I understand, there's videos now, and I haven't seen them yet. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can look for them. And I guess watch some of them just to see how Nick Cruz even acts, because I don't have any idea. Alright, and of course there's a transcript, and that was, given to the press, and the press leaked certain information out there, which you probably already noticed if you've been keeping up with it. Everybody and their mama just wrote the same exact article like they've been doing. Right? Isn't that nefarious? How everybody, anyways, right? Just copying and pasting everybody else. Basically, you're gonna see, oh yeah, Nick Cruz confessed. He confessed to the whole thing. He's killing everybody. This and that. Said that he heard voices. All right, and they're gonna talk about that. Certain articles are going to change that. Oh, he heard voices. Some articles say he heard one voice. That was the voice of a young man. Alright, and then, some articles say, oh, he had demons. He was hearing demons and stuff. It's kind of odd because I don't know how many people out there even believe in demons. But, certain articles were to say, oh, man, Nick Cruz said he had demons. And Nick Cruz said he had demons. It's a voice talking to him in his head. Alright? So, for the great majority of people out there who I'm not talking to, they get this little spoonful of information after about 5-6 months. And I say, there you go. It's delicious. Alright? There you go. Nick Cruz, he's guilty. He proved he was guilty, he talked about it, he said this voice is telling him and stuff like that, so obviously it happened, and there you go, case closed, alright? Open and shut case. Now most people are going to think this. Right? I'm not talking to any of those people, alright? They can do whatever they want to do, it's probably going to include the television, something like that. Alright? Talking to everybody out there, that's still, even his testimony, his confession, even still, believe it or not, circumstantial evidence. All right, by definition. So, I don't know what to even say about it. You gotta understand. His thing. You might have noted that I mentioned a number of days ago that this is exactly what's going to happen. They're going to give his confession. He's going to say he killed people. Now, here's an interesting note. The voices, the demon, and we're going to touch on that in a second. All right, but of course, he did it, this and that. He didn't know, he's sorry that this all happened, blah, blah, blah. Of course, what's redacted is what's called, again, the substantial evidence, or the substantial nature of his confession, meaning him explaining how he did what he did, right? That, like I said, as far as court proceedings go, completely, totally redacted. So this big, long confession of like 200 some odd pages has some amount of pages all blacked out. Meanwhile, all what's not blacked out for the public to see is, like I said, every last bit of it, circumstantial evidence. He's not proving anything. He said he did it. The thing is, I'm not here to find out whether or not Nick Cruz thinks he did it. All right, and I don't think everybody out here is here really, really trying to find out whether or not Nick Cruz thinks he did it. All right, it's really beside the point. What we want to know is who did it. We want to know how. Okay, Nick Cruz did it. How did he do it? That surveillance footage and stuff. Where's that at? Because he might not really understand what's going on. Here's the thing about it. A lot of people have had this theory. I could tell a lot of people have been keeping it under their hat. I've been kind of keeping it under my hat, even though I've kind of implied it before a little bit. I want to speak about that voice. All right, we've talked about this before. There's been specific videos about this exact thing before that I've made, that so many other people have made, that they brought to my attention. All right, he heard a voice. He heard a voice in his head. All right, like I said, great majority of people out there say, "Oh, he's deranged and stuff." Man, he did it. He did it. This is proof. Stuff's not proof. It's not proof at all. All right, because who knows? Who knows how many people he shot? How does he know how many people he shot? All right, where did he shoot him? All this and that. You can't know because it's been redacted. Meanwhile, like I say, things like this gonna get leaked anyways. Meanwhile, their whole deal is to kick this can down the road. Meanwhile, it seems like all sort of different various parties are going rogue. They're not exactly colluding together. Is what I'm suggesting. The defense lawyers, the prosecutors, the judges, this and that. They're not exactly colluding together. They just don't really know what's going on here. All right, I'm here to lend a suggestion of what's going on here. All right, Nick Cruz, and like I said, people have already been kind of getting at this conclusion. Nick Cruz happens to be one of those what you would call targeted individuals. All right, and I know a lot of people are gonna blow me off that point. Say, oh, targeted individuals. Well, you believe in leprechauns and this and that too. It's like, all right, so a lot of people will totally miss the boat and they'll say, oh, Fantasyland, you're talking about targeted individuals. This is some made-up conspiracy theory jargon that has just been made up. Nah, actually, it hasn't. The term, you'll note, targeted individuals has kind of been around for a little while. People have been talking about it since before Nick Cruz. All right. There's grown-ass people out here who will look at me and hear me and say, pish posh, what in the world? Somebody sending thoughts into Nick Cruz's head? Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly. You're sending a voice into his head. Yes, exactly. There'll be people out there who say, oh man, this conspiracy theory nonsense. I mean, this kind of technology, this doesn't exist. He's just making this up. All these people are making it up. They're mentally deranged and they're playing games and they're making it up. And they're not actually hearing voices, or if they are hearing voices, maybe they got demons. Maybe they're hearing their own voices. All right, so there's people who cling so tightly to their faith and just swallowing everything whole. Whatever has not been admitted to on TV just does not exist to these people. So a lot of people, like I said, they're laughing at me right now. They're talking about, oh, targeted individual. Is it possible that some rogue element of the, sheriff's department or something like that, FBI, was sending voices directly into Nick Cruz's otherwise harmless head? They say, oh, that's impossible. I'm not here to convince you of anything, really. I mean, if you want convincing, why don't you holler at Steve Hoffman? All right, why don't you YouTube it? Why don't you holler at Steve Hoffman about a year ago, having one of those little TED Talks, telling the whole crowd about brain to computer interactions. All right, in fact, a whole host of technologies based off of brain to computer interaction. That was a year ago. All right, I want to explain something. Do you think, are you here to tell me that the technology exists for brains to communicate to computers, but not the other way around? Is that what you're telling me? But of course not. Of course not, because it is a two-way road. If you can make your brain communicate with the computer, vice versa, a computer can communicate with your brain. Perhaps send voices into it. Believe it or not, the technology exists. All right. A lot of people want to look at me and say, oh, it's kind of a far-fetched theory. Actually, the mainstream narrative of how this went down is a far-fetched theory, dude. That's the most farthest-fetched theory I ever heard in my life. Right? So actually, when you really break it down, I'm not saying if I'm right or wrong. I really don't know. But my theory is actually way more practical. All right? Makes a lot more sense. All right? See, there's all sort of details that are being missed. We're going to get up out of here and not make this a too long video, but there's all sort of details. If you just listen closely, you're going to catch them. If you just listen closely, you're going to catch them because, see, they let them leak out, dude. They can't help but even leak the truth out of their own lying-ass mouths. All right? Even in some of these articles, you'll see, okay, sequence of events. Nick Cruz, in his little confession, talks about the voice telling him to shoot up people at the park. Y'all remember that? Okay, so if you read that closely, there was a voice telling him to shoot up people at the park. He didn't do it. He actually backed out of doing it. I want to just paint a picture for you as a suggestion. Maybe what happened is this voice, this person with the machine who can remotely target Nick Cruz, who happens to be a vulnerable person, who happens to really not have any family around, who happens to have hardly anybody taken up for him. All right? This person, this rogue element of sheriff's office or whatever government agency, it really doesn't matter. He's targeting Nick Cruz. He's telling him, okay, yeah, shoot up the park. You're going to shoot up the park. Kill, burn, and destroy. And all sort of nefarious things he's throwing into Nick Cruz's head. Nick Cruz almost gets carried away by this. Meanwhile, I want to just redirect your attention to another mass shooting that happened in the same exact county under Sheriff Scotty Israel's jurisdiction. All right, mass shooting in which the shooter said, there's voices in my head. It was telling me to do this. All right, that doesn't strike you as another targeted individual. All right, like I said, the technology, you can deny it all you want. Feel free to deny it until you're blue in the face. It does not matter. The technology, of course, exists. The question is whether or not the technology was implemented on Nick Cruz in a way that nobody can really figure out. All right, but like I said, they paint a picture. They let the truth spill out of their little disgusting articles. The truth spills out. So you'll hear the story of Nick Cruz actually opting to not shoot up people in the park. All right, because the true Nick Cruz, himself, by himself, is not trying to shoot up people, believe it or not. He's got a voice in his head constantly just sneaking in, telling him this and that. You should do this, you should do that. A voice in his head, and he said no. All right, so let me paint a picture of what happened on Valentine's Day. That whole sequence of events, the park almost happening, didn't happen. The person who's trying to get it to happen, becoming kind of frustrated. He's going to plan B. Wherever Nick Cruz can go. In fact, you know what? Maybe Nick Cruz just got accepted back to his school. Ooh, that's a nice turn of events, isn't it? All right, maybe people don't know about it, stuff like this. Maybe certain people know this, certain people know that. All right, he gets Nick Cruz, speaks voices into his head, convinces him to do the whole lot, to come through on the Uber, to come to the school, to show up at school just like we knew he did. All right, he goes into the he goes into the stairwell, right? Like everybody says he does, which would make sense if he was going to the upstairs, if he was going to the second story. That would make sense. It really wouldn't make sense for him to walk into the stairwell, jam a mask on his face like they're, I guess, implying by animations, jam a mask on his face, then load the gun up in the dang stairwell, tell that one dude, Chris McKenna, to scram, get the hell up out of here, and then start shooting. It doesn't make any sense. What kind of does make sense is you got voices going on in Nick Cruz's head. It's telling him to, guess what, do what? Get a vantage point and shoot up all the kids just like it was said in his selfie video. Okay, where do you get a vantage point? Yeah, the second story or third story. You're going upstairs. That's why he goes into the stairwell. Now, a lot of people already told me a long time ago, Nick Cruz spent his whole time on the second story. And you know, that's very much a possibility that Nick Cruz, in this haze, he's got a machine talking into his brain, telling him, kill, burn, and destroy. He's going up to the second story. He thinks he's about to do something. Meanwhile, there's a person lurking in the stairwell. He pops out, scares Chris McKenna half to death, and then he comes out shooting. Nikolas Cruz has not a clue what's happening. Neither does anybody in the whole building, by the way. Especially teachers who think they're in on some sort of drill, who are telling children, no, you can't leave, you can't go to the bathroom, we're locking you in. This is a thing that we do now, it's for security purposes. We're going to lock everybody in. No, you can't go to the bathroom, because then you go to ISS immediately. Don't nobody get out of the classrooms. You stay in here for this period, for whatever reason specifically, all right? Something weird might happen, and then something weird happens. Something so weird happens that all the different teachers who thought that, maybe there was a drill, now they're confused. Was there supposed to be a drill, or was there going to be a drill, but it didn't happen? They're so confused, they don't know up from down. Especially as Stacy LaPel, she's got out of her mind. By the way, she's one of those people who gobbles up the lies like it's Thanksgiving Day dinner. All right, she just had like a federal agent come to her house and say, "Look, you thought you saw this, you thought you saw that. You didn't really do that. You didn't really see nothing." Stacy, and that's how that went down. All right, this whole story, it's just a suggestion. All right, I would love to hear all y'all suggestions out there. Of course, we're getting off into different forums. I'm about to go into BitChute, which I'm sure is getting a very big upkick. And users and things of that nature due to YouTube committing suicide all over itself. All right, and that's terrible. All right, but we're here to talk about plausible theories. And right now, in my mind, that's the most plausible theory that we have going for us, and in that we do not have any physical evidence to this day. Right. Some very weird is going on. Speaking of which, by the way, all sort of details, like I said, that they still don't get. And they're letting them leak out in their articles. They're letting them leak out in the transcripts. All right. You're going to notice all sort of details. We're going to get out of here, but to include the love of Nick Cruz's life, which doesn't make any sense, but he's a young kid, so, it is what it is. Do you remember who he said the love of his life was? It's a girl by the name of Emily, and I forget her last name. A girl by the name of Emily. It was not Angie. Who the hell is Angie? That doesn't make any sense. Now, everything's on the table. Maybe Emily's middle name is Angie. Maybe people call her Angie, or maybe her middle name is Angela or something. Everything's on the table, but in the meantime, Angie's a person who does not exist. Right? And I don't know if it strikes y'all as odd. I'm sure it strikes a lot of y'all as odd. But there's people out there, they're bloodthirsty, all right? They won't stop until they have somebody to blame and point their finger at. That would be Nick Cruz. Meanwhile, as of February 13th, like I brought up before, the entirety of the school system absolutely failed Nick Cruz over and over and over and over again. They are guilty beyond any measure that I'm aware of. All sorts of things are going on. But like I said, we got a lot of time to see just how much these people are going to reveal to us without their even knowing it. We have until November. Like I said, this is all about the midterm elections for no good reason. Right? They want to get certain people voted in. And see, the thing is, they're going to use fear to do it. Meanwhile, while we're focused on this Nick Cruz, and the fact is, none of this makes sense except the way that, we're pondering about it. That somehow makes sense now, and it's starting to make more and more sense as the days go on. You got to understand, they're trying to win the midterm election completely and solely based on fear. Right? And they understand that right now, currently, people are not afraid. People ain't afraid of just not buying in to the nasty rhetoric of the anti-gun lobby and this and that, the Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the Maxine Waterses, the Nancy Pelosi's out there, the Pocahontases, the Hillary. I mean, it goes on and on. The Obamas and all this, the McCain's, dude, names after names after names. We're tired of it. We've been tired of it. All right, these people, I don't know who's behind it, but these people ain't done either. All right, and they're desperate. So anyways, I'll holler at y'all later, man. Thank you for all the tips, man. Thank you for all the hints. Thank you for all the perspectives. Keep them coming. It's all about teamwork. I'll holler at y'all. I got a few other things to talk about with y'all in a second, man. I'll holler at y'all a little bit later. I appreciate y'all. You need to subscribe on here, man, because we're all about getting down to the nitty gritty and stuff. You know what I'm saying? I'll holler at y'all a little bit later.